Gerald Brooks is the founding pastor of Grace Church in Plano, Texas. He is well known internationally for his passionate heart to mentor other pastors and is the host of the North Texas Leadership Conference in Plano, which draws ministers from all over the nation. Pastor Brooks, along with his wife Jenny, founded Grace Church in 1982. The church creates an environment where the lost can be saved and the saved can serve. Please welcome to the stage Pastor Gerald Brooks.
It's such an honor being here, and I just want to start by saying to my dear friend Mark how much I love you and how proud I am of you, how grateful I am for all that God is doing in you and doing through you. You did a fabulous job. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let me just talk to the rest of you because most of you don't have a clue who I am. My name's Gerald Brooks, and I've had the privilege of being in ministry for 44 years. And over that 44 years, I've pastored. That means I'm with people on their best day, and I'm with people on their worst day. I'm with people when they're on top of the mountain, and I'm with people when the mountain's on top of them. I want to just sort of set the tone for you. Some of you are waiting for the anointing to fall. I pastor as a teacher, which means this: if you're waiting for the anointing to fall, this is it. It doesn't get any deeper. It doesn't get any better than what you've just felt. Why don't you do me a favor? Turn to the person next to you and say, "This is all he's got." That being said, I've been given 17 minutes to talk to you, and I want to talk to you about something that God is going to do. In Luke chapter 10 and verse 17 through 20, it says, "And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, 'The Lord, even the devils are subject unto us through thy name.' He said unto them, 'I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents, scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven.'" I have a lot of friends that are pretty famous. One of those friends is a friend that Mark also has, named John Maxwell. John Maxwell's been in this school, and he's taught about leadership. Now, I've got to be honest with you. I tend to be a contrarian thinker. And that is, just because I hear someone stay on this stage and say something, it doesn't necessarily move me. I tend to look at the things that are being said and adjust to them. And I ask one question: did Jesus say that? The things that were being said, did Jesus articulate that? So I travel the country, and I hear a lot of people talk about the concept of leadership. And when I hear that concept being taught, I literally listen to it, and I think, oh, that's fine and good. But did Jesus say anything about leadership? I've been to a John Maxwell leadership meeting. I've been to a Dale Bronner leadership meeting. I've been to a Jack Hayford leadership meeting. You pretty well name them. I've been to one of their leadership meetings. But one of the questions that I had in my heart was, well, if leadership is really valid, did Jesus ever have a leadership meeting? Because if Jesus didn't have a leadership meeting, then I probably don't need to be having a leadership meeting. So I began to pray. I said, God, I want to understand if you had a leadership meeting. It was at that point that he took me to the verses in Luke chapter 10, and he said, I want to show you my leadership meeting. Now, you have to understand a little bit of context. We're in a Bible school. What has happened in the previous chapter, in the previous verses, is Jesus sent out 12 men. They are his disciples. You know them very well. You understand who they are. And he said, I want you to go out in my name. You're going to begin to preach. You're going to begin to minister. You're going to heal the sick. You're going to raise the dead. You're going to help people. You're going to engage people. Jesus released them into ministry. That went well. In business, we would call it the beta test. Those of you that are here for a business degree, the beta test is when you initially test a product. You're not doing it widely. You're just doing it in a limited fashion. But now this would be called in business the rollout. And the rollout is basically this. Your beta test came back good. Now you're going to roll it out, and you're going to roll it out on a larger platform. You're going to do something bigger than what had happened, and you're going to begin to roll it out. So what does he do? He finds 70 other people, and he says, I want you to go also. I want you to do the same thing. Now, it's at this point that we begin to see Jesus having a leadership meeting. 12 had gone out, they succeeded. 70 had gone out, and they've succeeded. They come back and they said, man, in your name, we've watched things happen. We've watched people be healed. We've watched people be delivered. We've watched people be set free. We've watched all of this. And it's at that point that Jesus stops them. And it's here that leadership begins to happen. And from this particular story, Jesus teaches us several thoughts about leadership. The first is, if you're going to lead in your life, there needs to be viable mentors. People who've been there before, who've done it, who've been out there and participated. There needs to be mentors. And what's going to happen is Jesus is showing these 70, you don't do ministry alone. You always have mentors. You have people out there that are a little further along that can help you. Now, see, the problem is mentoring is one of those N words. And so I have to thread a needle. I have two kinds of people in here. I have young people that are in school that are taking their first steps, and I have older people that are in ministry that are trying to figure out the next step. I have young people, I've got to convince them not to be doing a search on their phone right now, and I have old people here that I'm trying to challenge that they're just not thinking about the next thing on their schedule right now. So as a communicator, I have to thread. Can I keep a young person off their phone for the next few moments? Can I keep an old person not thinking about their schedule for the next few moments? And can I say something that is going to be life-giving? Jesus calls these 70 and he says, guys, he says, great job. He high-fives them. He listens to their stories. He looks at them, says, great job, great job, great job. He's encouraging them. He's inspiring them. He's talking to them. But then he begins to lead them and he says, I need to be a mentor. But see, here's the problem. Mentoring is a word that's misunderstood because mentoring doesn't mean counseling. See, mentoring and counseling are not the same thing. As I travel, what's going to happen, people will walk up to me and they'll say, would you mentor me? And I know what they're asking. I know what they're trying to say, but I also know that they're really not saying it. See, the difference between mentoring and counseling is this, is mentoring is about the future, counseling's about the past. Mentoring's about potential, counseling's about a problem. And in mentoring, the mentor does the talking. In counseling, the counselor does the talking. And see, a lot of young people will come up to me and say, hey, would you be my mentor? And what they're really asking is, will you be my counselor? Jesus isn't counseling them. He's mentoring them. And in your life, if you're going to go far, you're going to find good mentors. People who will speak to your future, people who will speak to your potential, people who will begin to speak to your life, not about problems, but they will begin to look into your soul and say, this is what God can do. But what we find is most people, they just want to sit down and they want to carry on a dialogue. I have 3 mentors in my life. Can I tell you something? When I sit down with my mentors, I'm not talking. In fact, all of them would shut me down. They say, Gerald, if you want a counselor, that's $200 an hour. Go get one, but I'm a mentor. One of the problems is we've got pastors out there who are counseling instead of mentoring. And we don't develop people for the future with our counseling. We develop people in the future by mentoring. And so Jesus is going to mentor them. And as he begins to mentor them, the first thing he does is he says, ministry can't be done by itself. You always have to have people who have a bigger perspective, who know a little bit more than you, who've been a little bit further down the road to you, who can add perspective to you. But then he teaches something else about ministry. He says, ministry can always create false positives. Now listen to me. A lot of people don't understand this. You can do ministry and it can get results, and you can do it in the wrong way. See, we think that if I'm doing ministry, the only way ministry will really happen is if ministry is occurring, then that means it's right. And the reason that 50% of all pastors don't last more than 20 years is because ministry creates false positives. You get results, but you're getting results doing it the wrong way. Someone says, well, I don't think that's true. Go back to Exodus chapter 18 when Moses is standing there as the leader over all of Israel. And Jethro, his father, comes in and looks at him and says, Moses, what are you doing? Well, what was Moses doing? He was facilitating the problems of Israel. People were coming to him saying, man, I got issues. I got stuff. I have things that are going on. I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with that. And do you know what happened? He looked at him and he says, you're doing this wrong. And Moses says, what do you mean there's all these needs? And then Jethro uttered something. He said, the thing that you're doing is wrong. And he said two things. You're going to hurt yourself and you will hurt the people. And just understand, whenever the leader gets hurt, the people get hurt. And so he looks at him and he says, hey, and he says, here's your problem. You're doing it all yourself, and you need captains over thousands. You need captains over hundreds. You need captains over 50s. You need captains over 10. Can I tell you, if you would have polled Israel and said, do you want to talk to this person and this person, or do you want to talk to Moses? They would have said, I'd talk to Moses. But the model was a failed model. Ministry was happening, people were happy, needs were being met. And so the first two things that Jesus does in this leadership meeting is he begins to mentor, because no one needs to do leadership and ministry by themselves. The second thing is that he challenges a false positive. Because when they came back, they're all excited, they're all thrilled, they're all pumped up, they've got it, they're happy. And what they said was, don't you understand? Even the demons are subject to us in your name. And then Jesus looks at him and he puts up his hand and he says this, he says, guys, you're about to mess up ministry. Now understand the third thing that Jesus was saying, if ministry isn't corrected early on, it perpetuates those problems until many times it's too late. And he looks at him and he puts up his hand and he says, guys, I know you had a great time out there, but I need to tell you something right now. You need to understand that your joy can't be in your performance. Because if you base your joy on your performance, ministry's going to crush you. He says your joy can't be and down here. Your joy has to be and up there. You can't let your joy be and what you're doing here. Your joy has to be and up there. Because if you let your joy be down here, it's going to beat the life out of you. And one day you're going to say, where did all my joy go? And Jesus looks at them and he begins to say to them, hey, good results, wrong response. You're basing your joy. You're basing your joy on the responses that are occurring down here. And I'm telling you right now that if you do that, you're not going to last in ministry. That's right. You're not going to make it in ministry because ministry is going to eat you alive. And for some of you, you're heading into ministry. Some of you, you're in ministry. And some of you that are in ministry, you know that this thing will eat you alive if you don't put your joy in the right place. See, what happens to pastors is we put our joy in how many people came. We put our joy in how many people said, good job. We put our joy in how many people responded to the altar call. We put our joy in how big the offering was. Here's the thing about a pastor. A pastor can handle a bad Sunday where the attendance was low as long as the message was good and the offering was good. They can handle it. Okay, man, not as many people, but I rocked that message today. That message was good. Hey, the offering was up. Count it all joy, man. We rolled today. Devil, take that. And a pastor can even handle if the attendance is low and the message was bad as long as the offering was good. Oh, well, the offering was good. God was in the house. He brought it. But you let there be that Sunday where the attendance is low, the message is bad, and the offering's bad. The pastor's wife and kids will not go home with him. They know that the level of down that is about to happen is overwhelming. They know that darkness, like when Jesus was crucified, is going to be there. They know that they are going to be overwhelmed. Why? Because we placed our joy in down here. We placed our joy down here, and when our joy's down here, our joy ceases to be our strength. So we're no longer strong in the Lord because we don't have any joy because we based it down here. Hey, you know what? The people didn't come. Well, hey, the message wasn't that good. The altar call wasn't that good. The finances weren't that good. Let me build a bridge. We had a sports team that the president had to get to stand up a few minutes ago. So let me go sports on you, just to relate to that group. My son understood that the first sound he heard was da-na-na-na. It's the first sound. He knew that he was going to be watching ESPN the very first day. We weren't going to read fairy tales to him. We were going to be watching ESPN. Now, here's the deal. Many decades ago, it was the early football games. Anyone who knows anything about the early football games know that they're usually the mismatches. They're the games that aren't any good. They're the games that you have a good team against a bad team. And so that's the reason they're the early. But it's football, so I'm watching the football game. But it's a football game where it's a blowout. In fact, it was a game between Michigan State and Wisconsin. They're playing at Wisconsin. Michigan State is up 35-0. Up 35-0 at halftime. So, the only people there are the band, the mascot, and the parents. We all know how that goes. And mama is thinking of leaving and saying, Dad, can you bring them home? It's that kind of thing. They get into the third quarter, and it's 42-0. By the time it's the fourth quarter, it's 49-0. Now, it's at that time that people are just trying to figure out what to do. But all of a sudden in the stands, people started cheering. The guy on TV says, something's obviously happening in the stadium that I'm unaware of. The Wisconsin fans are cheering. Said, to be honest, we can't figure out what they're cheering about. Their team's losing 49-0. We've sent our sideline reporter, who we had to wake up, had no one to talk to down there. And we've sent our sideline reporter over into the Wisconsin fan base to try to figure out what's going on. And then what happens is they find out that the Wisconsin fans were listening to the Milwaukee Braves baseball game. They were in the playoffs. And so they're watching the game, their team's getting killed here, but they're listening to the Milwaukee Brewers up there, and they're in the playoffs, and they're winning, and so these people are cheering. They're not cheering because of here, they're cheering because of here. They're not happy because of here, they're happy because of here. And see, here's the thing in life. You got to choose where you're going to draw your happiness from, or you're not going to last in ministry. And so when Jesus was teaching these young people ministry, he looked at them and he says, if you're going to stay in ministry, if you're going to survive ministry, you're going to have to make sure you don't place your joy down here, because you had a good day and it's easy for you to be rejoicing, but there will be other days, and if your joy's here and not there, you're not going to last. Do you think there's any possibility that Jesus was thinking ahead to a moment when he was on the Mount of Transfiguration? And there he is up there with Peter, James, and John. And he comes down in the valley, and there's a man who had a need for his son, and they had prayed, and the devil didn't come out. Do you think Jesus knew that these same guys that were all thrilled that the devils are subject to our name, and then they couldn't cast out a devil? Where did their joy go? Could I plead with some of you that are in ministry? The only way you're going to stay in ministry is if you make your joy bigger than down here. And if you don't appropriate your joy being up there, down here is going to eat you alive. And some of you that are young, you haven't even gone into ministry. You haven't even done the first steps. Your joy can't be in the degree. It can't be in being married. It can't be in having kids. All those things can be happy moments, but your joy is greater than that. So Jesus, when he was teaching these individuals, what he did was he said, if you're going to get ministry right, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to lead by managing your joy. You can never allow your joy to be placed in events down here, or you will have no joy in ministry. Now, Jesus went on, and there was another story that happened in this same passage, and it involves two sisters. And in verses 41 and 42, it says, Martha, Martha, Jesus speaking to Martha. I love the way this says it. It says, Martha, you're so anxious and you're concerned about a million details. Second thing he teaches about leadership. There's always more to do than you will ever be able to do. In life, in ministry, there's always more to do than you'll ever be able to do. There's always more stuff, there's more things. So first of all, he says, if you're going to lead, you're going to have to manage your joy. Secondly, he says, if you're going to lead, you're going to have to manage your activities. Because there's always going to be more to do than you possibly can do. There's just going to be more. There's going to be more need out there. There's going to be more problems out there. There's going to be more issues out there. There's going to be more people wanting your time. There's going to be more this. There's going to be more that. There's going to be more. And Jesus looks and he says, Martha, I need you to step back. I need you to understand there will always be the need for more. You will always feel the pressure of it. You will always feel the pressure of more. One more call, one more meeting, one more conversation, one more this, one more that. You will always feel it. If you're trying to help people, there will always be a line of people to be helped. You need to understand that there will always be this. But let me be transparent. If you were someone who is Jewish, this passage blew you up. Now, because everyone in here is Gentile, it didn't blow you up. Because of what Jesus says next. He says, Martha, there's always more to do than you can possibly do. But Mary. And it says about Mary that she was seated at his feet. You got to understand, in the Jewish culture, that was a reference to someone being a disciple. And what he was saying is, ladies are just as much a disciple of Christ as any man. So from a Jewish standpoint, they'd have bumped all over this scripture based on their heritage. But it's in the midst of that we turn around, and it says this. He says, but Mary's found the thing that needs to be done. If you're going to lead, you're going to have to manage your joy. But if you're going to lead, you're going to have to manage your activities. Because when you manage your activities, if you're not careful, everything you can do will stop you from doing the thing you're supposed to do. Now, those of you that are here for a business degree, you know who Warren Buffett is. For those of you who don't, he's just a wealthy guy. But every year, people bid to have lunch with him. And two men won. They both bid $500,000. Mark will let you have lunch with him cheaper than that. Not much cheaper. And they got to spend lunch with him. They were interviewed afterwards, and they said, when they were asked the question, what was the one thing you learned from Warren Buffett? You just paid $500,000 to have lunch with him. What did you learn? They both said this: say no more often. See, when you do what I do for a living, you want to help people. And you want to help everyone you can. But you can't help everybody. And there's a time when, if I'm going to be married, I have to say no. If I'm going to be a dad, I have to say no. If I'm going to be healthy, I have to say no. If you're going to lead, you're going to have to manage your joy. It can't be down here. It's got to be up there. If you're going to lead, you have to manage your activities. Because you can't do everything, but you've got to find those few things at the feet of Jesus that you're supposed to do. The third thing, you have to manage your focus. Now, in Philippians chapter 3, Paul talks about focus. And when he talks about focus, he says, I don't want to lose focus on this one thing that I do. This one thing. Now, I'll tell you something. I will pay more for someone who has focus than I will for someone who has talent. Talented people who are unfocused are unhelpful. The greatest skill you can offer me is the ability to focus. Can you keep your eye where it needs to go? Can you do what you need done? And can you accomplish it? So, Let me bring sports in again. My son's sitting right over there. He played on the best high school baseball team, rated #1 in the nation. He then went off and played college baseball. Then he played minor league baseball. Now, here's the thing. To be able to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball is hard. In fact, if most people were in a cage when a 90-mile-an-hour fastball comes, your instinct is to duck, to hide, to run. And it doesn't matter that it's not even near you. You can't even see that. It's coming. It's spinning. But yet, when he played college ball, he finished 4 years hitting 378 was his average. But how do you do that? Well, they taught him how to focus on a baseball. See, everyone says in Little League, well, hey, if you want to hit the ball, just look at the ball. That's some of the least helpful information. That's like saying, if you go to church, everything's going to be all right. Some of the most messed up people I know go to church. And they've gone to church forever and they're messed up. We're not talking about the 1-weekers. We're talking about decades of messed up. But do you know what they do when they teach you to hit a baseball? They have 4 panels on it. And what they do is when that ball is coming out of the jugs machine, one panel's green, one's red, one's yellow, and then they'll give another color. That ball's spinning. When that ball comes at you, when you swing, you have to holler out the color of the panel you're hitting. So you have to holler out 90 miles an hour, green. Now, if you get good enough to do that, you know what they do next? They put a number in the panel. So it could be green 1, yellow 2. You've never seen anything like it, a fastball rotating like this, and all of a sudden you're looking and you're seeing these colors spin at you, and you've got to call out not only the panel, but the number in the panel. Because to hit big, you aim small. And see, in ministry, to hit big, you aim small. I'm not trying to do everything every other church does. I'm trying to do what God asked my church to do. I'm not trying to compete with everyone else. I'm trying to figure out what is that thing God wanted. I'm not aiming big. I'm aiming small, and I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be focused because to hit that ball, I've got to be able to see it. I've got to be able to know it. I've got to be able to focus on it. And so in the middle of that, that ball is spinning, and you're seeing it come at you. Remember, there's a verse in the Bible, it says, as seeing him who is invisible. That seems impossible. How can you see him who's invisible? I'm telling you, if you sit in a batting cage with my son and a 100-mile-an-hour ball comes by or a 90-mile-an-hour ball, you're going to say, that's invisible. Unless you've trained yourself to see it. See, here's the thing. Most people can't see God in this world. But you can. Because you train yourself to see God in every moment of life. And if you're going to lead, and you're going to lead well, let me give you 3 skills. You're going to lead because you haven't put your joy down here. You've put it up there. And you're going to lead knowing that there's 1,000 things that you can do, but you're going to find the few things you're supposed to do. And you're going to lead never losing focus on what you are supposed to do. See, the best leaders don't do everything. They just do a couple of things better than everyone else who's trying to do everything. Hey, John Maxwell. How many times have you heard him teach on the book of Revelation? He's not going to teach on the book of Revelation. Do you know why? That's not what he's going for. He's teaching leadership. He's teaching personal development. He's teaching growth. He's teaching a certain perspective. The people who get paid most in society specialize in knowledge. So when Jesus taught leadership, he says, emotionally, not here, there. He said, when it comes to your life, not everything, just a couple of things. And he said, hey, can you keep focused when everyone is trying to distract you? Can you do it? Can you be focused when everyone? See, for me, my life is simple. I live based on two simple things. Make heaven bigger. I'm going to reach lost people. Make the kingdom of God better. I'm going to help pastors. Those are the two things I do. After that, my life is a vacuum. Not trying to be the most fun guy, you caught on? Not trying to be the most anointed guy. I told Dale if he really wanted to be good, he should add the Apocrypha to his breakdown of the books. I was really disappointed that he didn't go through. I mean, hey, anyway, everyone knows the books of the Bible. Give us the maps at the end. I'm wanting the guy to expand his game. To some of you in ministry, this thing's killing you because your joy got down here. Remember that your name is written in the book of life. And for some of you that are starting, you're looking at 1,000 things to do. You find a couple of things God wants you to do. And one day, you'll be up here, and Andre will be sitting over there, and Andre has this thing. He stands up, and then he gets closer. It's like he's being spiritual, but it's like the time clock. That's all it is. See, like, I literally have 45 seconds. I'm just going to stare at him and see how long it takes him to stand up. Just to stand up. But I mean, that's his deal. He'll stand up and then he'll come and then he'll get a little closer, and he gets a little bit closer to you. You just know that you're in trouble. You know, it's like death arriving at the end of something. Thank you so much.